In 2013, the Education Week team embarked on this endeavor to find and highlight the best K-12 district leaders with our inaugural class of Leaders to Learn From. That class included folks that you've probably seen in the room during this break. They include folks like Michelle Brooks, who I saw over here. She was recognized for her outstanding work in Boston Public Schools, for her work in parent and family engagement. And then I saw Patricia Spradley over there. She was there from the class of 2015 last year, for those of you who were here. And she too was recognized for her work with families and parents, families and students. That class also included our final Ed Talk speaker today, Superintendent Valeria Silva, who we recognized for her work with English language learners in 2013. She will have her leadership journey to share with us a bit in a little bit. Building on the huge success of our first year, Education Week went on to hunt for more great leaders. These included, as you'll see on the screen here, Dennis Creedon. Superintendent Dennis Creedon was the assistant superintendent of the School District of Philadelphia when we recognized him in 2014. He has gone on in the intervening years, after having been recognized by us for expanding arts education in Philly, to becoming the superintendent of Mahopac's Central School District in upstate New York. He too will have quite a story to tell you all. Our Leaders to Learn From continue to do amazing work in the field of education, in their districts and in their communities. Many of them are holding the same positions still. Some of them have been promoted, and a few have retired and otherwise moved on. And on the topic of moving on, we will kick it off now with Superintendent Tiffany Anderson from the class of 2015. Tiffany is the superintendent of Jennings School District in Jennings, Missouri. Anderson's specialty in Jennings, a majority African-American low-income community next door to Ferguson, has been confronting the impacts of poverty. Her dogged determination to improve students' lives outside of school, that is, the district has a food bank, washer and dryers for families, a shelter for homeless students, as well as foster children, has been a major plank in her strategy to turn student learning and academic achievement in a positive direction. Soon, she will be starting her job as superintendent of Topeka, Kansas School District. Everyone, if you would, please join me in welcoming Superintendent Tiffany Anderson to tell us more about her career transition.
I believe they're turning the mic on back there. Are we good to go? I'm going to try that again, and that sounds 3 times makes perfect. Let's give them a hand clap back there. Thank you. Okay, so they said I have 6 minutes, and I just used about 6 seconds with the microphone. So I'm going to talk really fast. It's why I wear tennis shoes, so that I can move fast as well as keep up with all the things that our young people bring. Several of you on your table have 2 things. Now, I didn't bring a ton because I brought 1 suitcase. So I brought what would fit in my suitcase with 2 suits. So some of you have a Transforming Schools booklet, and most tables have a Hope House flyer. So I encourage you, if it's at your table, to look through it. If you'd like information such as that after this, feel free to contact me. Jennings is an amazing place. I have been there 4 years, and I've been doing this 22 years, most of which as superintendent. In Jennings, we are 100% free lunch. We are 98% African-American students. When I started, they were bordering being unaccredited. You have to meet 70% of the standards to be accredited. We were at 57. Below 50 is unaccredited. And so the first year, the goal for me is to ensure that starting year 1, improvement happens rapidly. Why? Because kids don't have time to wait for adults to get it right. If you take 4 years, that's 4 years of graduates. That's the 9th grader who dropped out because it took you 4 years to get it right. So that first year we got started. I asked parents, what is it that you need most? You know what they said? Food. Plain and simple. We need food. So I said, well, who supplies the food banks? Every city has a food bank. Your city has a food bank as well. And I learned that the St. Louis Food Bank supplies all the food banks. So I asked, could we have that in our district? And they provided it. So we turned a school, an empty school building, into a food bank. We give out 8,000 pounds of food a month That's about 200 to 400 families a month getting groceries from Jennings. Talk about making sure that you build relationships in positive ways. And then we thought, why don't we build in restorative justice? So who works at the food bank? Our alternative school students help run it, stock it. They give back to the community. It's amazing what transformation can occur when you give other people the opportunity to serve others. So it has been extraordinary. From the food bank, we then began talking to schools about why aren't parents in schools involved? He said, you know, my parents said, well, Doc, I got a lot of stuff. I got to wash my clothes. I got to get groceries. So I said, you know what? We can fix all of that. I need good health care. And so we have washer and dryers in every school. You can wash one load of laundry in exchange for 1 hour of volunteerism. We have a hospital. And again, hospitals love to partner, in part because they all have either Medicaid or Medicare or something that they actually have that they actually would love to be in your schools. Just approach them. People will help if they know how. So our goal is to let them know how. So Washington University opened up a hospital in our high school. You break an arm, come to school, we'll take care of it. Literally. So now health care is now provided. So any obstacle that gets in the way of learning. You see, when you turn around a school, a lot of times people think that in order to do that, jump on the test scores, get on the teachers about what they're not teaching. Here's what I've learned in the 22 years that I've done this. Whether you're a teacher in a classroom, whether you are a school building leader at a school, or whether you are running a district, these three things, either they're broken in your district, which is why you're not performing at high levels, or if you are performing at high levels, you have these three things intact. I didn't make this up, Harvard did. It's called tripod. Relationships, that's first. Kids will work hard for you if they trust you. They won't if they don't. Adults are the same way. So relationships, second, an aligned standards-based curriculum. And third is pedagogy. Who's in front of the kids and what the heck are they teaching them? And so we give a content test to all of our teachers to have the privilege to work with our students. 75% fail. And with that, it's just a 10-question quiz. You don't have to go out and buy anything either. Look at this. Programs come and go. As superintendents come, programs come and go. Systems remain. And so with those systems that remain, when I go on to Topeka to replicate many of the things that we're doing for those 14,000 students, the system will remain. Because these are not things that I had to purchase. These are just systematic processes, data team processes, ensuring that we have the pantry in place, the wraparound services. In St. Louis, at the end of this year, we will be the first trauma-informed school district, which means we believe that there's a toxicity to poverty, and we give extraordinarily large amounts of mental health training. Every school has 3 mental health therapists. We don't fund that. What we do is use the partners. So if you want to know how do you get your partners, the first thing that I would give you as advice is that ask United Way who they fund in your zip code. You would be shocked who gets funding that you're not partnering with. So that's partnership number 1. Then you go down that list and you'd be surprised. People want to help. They need you as leaders to show them how. And so Jennings moved from 57%, get this, we are now at 81% meeting state standards. Talk about good stuff. Oh my goodness. Last year, we were somewhere around 78 and 72, so when they got past 70, they thought we're exceeding state standards and we have 100% free lunch. We have arrived. I said, no, we haven't. We need 100%. So we're now at 81, and we know that that system will remain. So new superintendent comes on board. Every great leader has good succession planning. There's a young man I met about 12 years ago and mentored him. The board, in their infinite wisdom, selected him for the new superintendency. Guess what? He starts Monday, because he will have 3 months to be trained and make sure that this system remains intact and continues. And then he will have me, his mentor, down the road, 6 hours away, to continue to be a resource. We are all here to be a resource to one another. So I thank you for coming to this event, for inspiring others, for learning what you can so you can take it back, and for knowing that you are not in this alone. You have many people around you with similar kinds of stories, but without telling the story, you won't know how to replicate it or be inspired by it. So again, I thank you for being here and for being a resource to others at your table and to me as well. I think we are all learning a lot. So Leaders to Learn From Education Week, I appreciate you for having me here as well as all of the others. Now I have 10 seconds left. Okay. This is great to have a little timer down here. In the 10 seconds that I have left, I'm going to give you just a few little nuggets, and know that, again, I put cards on most of your tables, and I think we'll have time at the end of this to speak as well. But the other piece that I also want to tell you about Jennings, we border, I'm out of time. Well, that kind of whets your appetite for the moment that's after this, because I think we have a little bit of time after this to talk with you. And I will turn it on over to the very next speaker. Let's give him an applause.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Creedon. I'm actually an oxymoron because I'm acute dyslexic who has a doctorate in literacy. So it's been an adventure in my career. I started out in the Catholic schools for 4 years, then went into the public schools for 28 years in Philadelphia. And much like we have heard from other people about different struggles, Pennsylvania also does not have a budget for last year, or this present year. And as a result, it had major impacts on our schools. Last year, the year I was honored, I had 24 schools, and I was the deputy chief of academics in the central office with 8 different areas. During that time, that spring, I had to close 70 libraries. All the librarians were laid off, all the library aides were laid off, and we also laid off all the instrumental music teachers who reported up to my office. Lo and behold, we brought back the instrumental music teachers, but we weren't able to reopen the libraries. And of all things, I got a phone call asking me about library science. And in the conversation, I was asked, by any chance, have you ever thought of being a superintendent? And I thought, well, that's an interesting concept. Well, of course, you know, I haven't been asked. So as it turns out, I was invited to come up to Mahopac, New York, to be interviewed. So I'm thinking I'm going to go up there and I'm going to have a nice interview. So I give myself 6 hours. I'm going to get up there early to have dinner, look around, see the town. Turns out I'm on 95 and a tractor trailer flips. Another tractor trailer hits that tractor trailer, and then cars are involved. So I'm stuck on the highway for 2 hours. I finally get off the highway, and now Center City, Philadelphia is gridlocked. Nothing is moving because of 95 being closed. Well, I call the recruiter, listen, I'm going to be late, should we reschedule? No, come on, we want to see you. I went up a highway called the Sawmill, only to realize later there were streetlights because I was going so fast. Well, I get into the town, and these 2 young ladies, I stopped them and said, you know where the district office is? And sure enough, they actually lead me to the district office. And I thought, oh, thank you, God. I open the car door, and what happens? The light turns on, I look down, and then I look up. Are you kidding me, Lord? I had on a brown and a black shoe. I'm like, oh, these people aren't going to hire me. I can just relax, you know. Do this, okay, 101. So as it turns out, I go in, and I'm relaxed because I'm late. I have 2 different colored shoes on. But they liked me. So I was invited back. And in Philadelphia, you know, I had developed a presentation with my teachers in my high schools, primarily on an issue I think that Tiffany just spoke of, and that is trauma. And one of the things that I learned in my presentations on the Adverse Childhood Experience Study was that when we say that urban educators are burned out, they're not burned out. We enter education because we love kids. We enter education because we feel for kids. But we have to look at what trauma is doing to teachers. So my response to the teachers in this one high school where I was presenting, teachers distance themselves from their professional responsibility in equal measure to the amount of trauma they assume from their students, because we can only love to a point. And the pain of loving children and seeing them injured and seeing them struggle actually weighs on our hearts. And sure enough, we actually have a word for this. It's called fatigue, compassion fatigue. And the judicial system for juveniles, it's why judges in that area do not last very long. It's because of the struggles they experience personally, much like our teachers do. So as a result, I began working with my teachers on what does it mean to actually develop skills for yourself, skills for your own mental health. How do you look at how you are managing stress, and how do you look at how stress enters into the teaching and learning environment? Every teacher is a chemist. They create the chemistry in the brains of their children, and depending upon how we actually engage children determines whether or not they are positively framed or whether or not they're struggling and they're having anxiety. The moment we have anxiety, cortisol's in the blood. The moment cortisol's there, oxygen glucose leaves the blood and leaves the blood into the muscles. And we need that for actually building up memory. So in my new position, they hired me. So in my new position, actually the one area that I begin working on is technology. And from technology, looking specifically at how do our teachers engage technology and how are we building technology into a tool to engage young people. So we're looking at Google for Education, the Google platform, and Chromebooks, with a major investment in Chromebooks for our students. And from that, also looking at how do we look at assessment. Assessment, as I think Renee noted, should be about celebrating teachers. If I say our students are greater than the sum of their assessments, so too are our teachers. Our teachers are not a number, and neither are children. We have to understand that there are struggles, and we have to support teachers so that they don't feel they're out there alone. So we're looking at working with Diane Cunningham in building teacher-developed assessments that will take the place of the state assessments so that our teachers feel comfort in knowing that they are part of the conversation and that assessment isn't about a gotcha. Assessment is about learning. It's about quality feedback. It's about developing a conversation between student, teacher, administrator. And as a result, the whole community can be a part of a learning process. And we're looking at technology as a way of making this a very fluid conversation because school is no longer a place. It's a process. And technology will make learning 24/7. And it's something that our children need to know as they're moving into the future. So it's been an adventure. I have on the same color shoes today. And with that, I have 1 second. Thank you.
I think it's still good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this great event. I am the first generation of being given this incredible, as I call it, kind of an award of work that I have done all my life. As you can see the picture, I have lost some weight. That's pretty good. Which is good, but I think it's called stress. Some people eat, some people don't. Well, my story is a little bit different. I am raised and born in Chile, and Santiago, Chile, and I came to the United States at age 24 for 3 months to learn English. It's been over 30 years, and I'm still learning English, as you may hear it, and you will see it. It's a language that you never finish learning. I was a teacher there, and I wanted to learn English to be able to go back and teach in my country English. Well, time went by, and here I am still in St. Paul, Minnesota, from Chile, and where it's cold, and people have very warm hearts. And I really mean that because I've been in Minnesota longer than I've been in Chile. So Minnesota is my new country. And a few years ago, I lost my mom, and I think that was kind of the last tie with my country. That now I feel very, very comfortable to say to everybody, I'm a proud Minnesotan, and I'm a proud American. But I also don't forget where I come from, my struggles, and what I bring to the kids. For years, I wanted to be like the other Minnesotans, which means the you betcha accent, all those things. And I didn't want it to sound like a foreign. I wanted to sound like a person that grew up there. But later in life, after being there for 30 years and started as a teacher assistant, I realized that my desire to speak English wasn't so much about losing the accent, but my desire was that the fact that every time I spoke English, that means some people look at me less because I didn't speak English right, and I'm a Latina. So for years, I have struggled with this whole concept of race and how race plays in your life. And for years, I kind of tried to believe that I was like everybody else. I married twice a white man. And I'm still married to one of them. And at the end, at the core, I am who I am. And I have so much to offer. So today, my message to you is, it doesn't matter where you come from, who you represent. We have to empower our kids to believe what they bring is so powerful and it's so beautiful that they need to be proud of who they are. And you know our kids today are not proud of who they are in our schools. So St. Paul Public School in the last 5 years, which I've been a superintendent for 7, has been working on racial equity. We're talking about race. We're finding different ways in which we are eliminating the racism in the organization as an institution. We are figuring out different ways in which we can integrate the kids, the students, the family's background into how we teach. And we are feeling comfortable to talk about, I'm a proud Latina woman, or I'm a proud African American man, and I'm a proud white male. And understanding that we all have privilege, as one or the other. And privilege doesn't mean it's bad or good, it's a privilege. So how do we learn to understand some of the privilege in the 2016 in America is turning this country into what it is today? So my job as a superintendent has been, and it will always be, working from the time I was an ELL director and I was awarded with this great opportunity until now, that I have been working towards racial equity across the board. Our ELL learners, our special ed learners, our students of color, students in poverty, they all live in a country in which we have promised a great education for all, and we're not delivering that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the achievement gap that we have today. But a lot of that is because we do not want to talk about what are the barriers in our mental mind, in our souls, in which it sees our kids differently. Color blindness in this country doesn't exist. It hasn't existed in any country. And then you see all the kids the same. It's not true. And I hope you don't, because they are not the same. We all bring something very different. And it is an asset, not a deficit. And our students, today's young generation, specifically our middle schoolers and high schoolers, are living in a society where race has become a factor of identification, under-identification, over-identification, and expectations. And we, the educators, need to know how to talk about it and empower our kids to believe in yourself and in themselves. So with that, I invite you to help me to make sure that our next generation understand that race matters in education, and until we don't do that, we won't make the changes and close the achievement gap. Thank you for the invitation.